Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Monica. I am a tarot reader and astrologer based in Australia. And today I am doing a video looking at some of my most favorite decks that I call oldies but goodies. So an oldie but a goodie to me is a tarot deck that has been around for quite some time. And I feel like they are often overlooked by tarot readers in this new tarot world that we find ourselves in, where there's just so much goodness in terms of Kickstarter and indie decks and self-publishing, and that's all absolutely wonderful. I by no means have any issues with that. I myself collect indie or rare or out-of-print tarot decks, but I wanted to highlight in this video 6 tarot decks that I think are oldies but goodies. So the criteria for these decks are that, they're obviously older decks that have been in print for a while. Most importantly, they're still currently in print. They are excellent for beginners. Now, here I just want to say that I haven't seen or I haven't had the pleasure to shuffle every single tarot deck on the market. So this is just based on my experience. However, that experience spans over 15 years now of being plugged into the tarot world and working with a wide variety of tarot decks. So in my opinion, as a tarot reader, as a tarot collector, and as a teacher of tarot, I consider these decks to be excellent for beginners. They all but one follow the Rider-Waite-Smith tradition. However, they are not the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. So the idea with this video is that these are not Rider-Waite-Smith or any variation of the Rider-Waite-Smith. They might be what some would consider clones, but I wanted to exclude Rider-Waite-Smith because I feel like, there's a lot of information out there on the RWS deck, and I wanted to showcase decks that might appeal for those people that aren't that drawn to the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, but they're also excellent for beginners and learning decks as such. So because they are in print and they are mass market, they are also fairly affordable. Okay, now all the prices I'm going to quote are in Australian dollars as of April 2023 when I'm recording this video, unless I specify otherwise. The other thing is that they are not Marseille based, because I find that if you're a beginner tarot reader, or you want something else other than the Rider-Waite-Smith, I feel like Marseille has like its own separate category, and I didn't want to go down that path. Rightio. And I should also say, actually before I start, I want to say in terms of affordability, I went online to check the prices, and I was quite surprised to see that, from my memory, before COVID and this whole craziness that happened in our world, so BC, I say before COVID, BC, you could pick up one of these tarot decks for around $30, right? Now they are more like around $50 Australian. Now, to me, that is actually a significant jump in price. However, you can very often find these decks for sale secondhand on your local Facebook tarot group or tarot page. We have a couple that are excellent here in Australia for providing, nicely curated content that filters out a lot of spam, junk, fake decks and things like that. But your local, wherever you are, there might be a local Facebook page dedicated to selling, secondhand tarot decks. So you can pick these up for $10, $20, right? And they'll still be in great condition. All right, so now that I've got my little criteria and disclaimer out of the way, let's start. And I'm gonna start with one that I love, and that is the Hanson Roberts Tarot. So this is illustrated by Mary Hanson Roberts, and as you can tell, it's a small deck. I love the size of this tarot deck, but even more so, I love that it sticks to the Rider-Waite-Smith tradition so well. It is published by US Games, I believe. Yes, US Games. It's a US Games publication. It is still in print, And roughly, if you were to find this, I think on a website like Booktopia here in Australia, it would be around the $48 mark roughly. So, you know, some of you might say that's not really affordable. However, you won't find many standard size tarot decks for a lot cheaper than that. Like there will be some around the $30 mark, but not many now. If you're looking at $30 or less, you're normally finding mini decks, you know, the small versions of a deck. So anyway, so that's the backs, and I'm gonna showcase some of the images so you get an idea for them. So aside from the small size, I think, you know, the cards are nicely labeled, the colors are beautiful, and the illustrations are really, really nicely done. I am certainly a fan of them. They do have the different languages. So you've got the English, and then you've got Italian and German, I believe, as well, and French, I believe, but don't quote me on that. So very, very traditional in terms of the Rider-Waite-Smith imagery. This is the Ten of Cups, and you will just recognize straight away, you know, the rainbow and the cups above, and there's the family, you know, the card of emotional fulfillment and happiness, the Tower, the Star. So the colors are not too jarring, they don't like jump out at you, and I do prefer that. Like, this is a great reading deck. I've used this for tarot readings for clients, works like a charm, and I think it's just generally really nicely done from a design and aesthetic point of view. But I really like the fact that a beginner could work with this tarot deck in the sense that the imagery is clear, it is well structured, there's no ambiguity, and yes, it follows the Rider-Waite-Smith really, really well. So this is the Hanson Roberts tarot deck, published by US Games. I highly recommend this tarot deck. Up next we have something a bit different, and that is the Fae Tarot. Now, the Fae Tarot is a Lo Scarabeo publication from Italy, and this is another one of those decks that I think, despite it being sort of like a niche topic, I think it works really, really well for beginners as well. It's very expressive, and it does follow the Rider-Waite-Smith. So here are the card backs. It is a standard size deck. You can still get this for sale. It is available here in Australia. If you go to the Booktopia website, you will find it up for sale. Roughly, I think around, I'm not sure, probably around $46, $47. So here's the Ten of Cups. Again, we come to that lovely rainbow above our two Fae. So this is based, of course, on the Fae, the fairies, you know, the elementals from the other side, to put it that way. And it follows Rider-Waite-Smith. Here's the Six of Swords, you know, in a boat crossing. The Four of Wands, celebration and party, you know, decorating the tree for a special event. So I think that this is a very underrated deck. I haven't seen many people work with this or pull it out, but for me, this little deck has given incredible readings. I don't know whether it's just me. And I know it's not like a serious deck, you know. It's not like fashionably serious or gothic or anything like that, but it's absolutely excellent. And I would certainly recommend this. You know, I mean, there's the Ten of Swords. So it flexes your intuitive muscle a little bit. It's not strictly Rider-Waite-Smith, but it follows that tradition, but with a bit of an extra something that's not too difficult for beginners to decipher, right? It's very well executed, very well structured, and I think that overall this is a fantastic deck. And you know, if you see these decks come up for sale secondhand, you know, for $10, $20, $30, I would highly recommend them. I think they make great reading decks, and I think that once the last ones sell from the mainstream publishers. I think that will be it for them, and they'll be highly sought after in the future. Or maybe not, you know. Hard to tell, there's just so much in the tarot world these days. But yeah, that's the Fate Tarot. Up next we have an excellent Rider-Waite-Smith clone, if you wish, and that is the Charmin Caselli. So if you look at the Rider-Waite-Smith deck and you really can't gel with the imagery, the way that the art, you know, the art style, the artwork, or anything like that, you might want to give this one a go. It is an excellent beginner's tarot deck, and also it comes with this really wonderful little white book that is one of the better ones out there. So when you open up, you will have the image and a bit of a description that gives you quite enough to get an idea of what it's, you know, what it's all about. Same for the majors, and then it's got a couple of sample readings that you can sort of have a look at and see this deck in action. So to the images themselves, first of all, the card back. I think it's going to be one of those where you either love it or you hate it. I love it. Can't explain why. I'm not a fond of bright reds or pinks. This sort of sits in between. I'm not sure how to describe this color, but let's have a look at the cards, because you'll see what I mean. If you haven't seen this deck, it is brilliant. It's got a really nice card stock. It's not too glossy. In fact, I don't think it's glossy at all. And it feels sort of natural feel, not plastic, which I think is excellent. But here are the images, and it's Rider-Waite-Smith, right? It's like Rider-Waite-Smith in a different language, but it's still Rider-Waite-Smith. So very easy to understand. I love the color structure here. You will do readings with this deck where the color patterns, or the way that the color flows in a reading, or you get these sort of color blocks that add a really nice layer of interpretation to your readings. And yeah, I highly rate this tarot deck. And again, I think it's one that is underrated. You know, simply because I think there is just so much goodness in the tarot world, as I said earlier, that I understand that, you know, a lot of people don't work with decks like these. But if you're after a pragmatic tarot deck, one that you can use for readings for yourself and for clients, and that's easy to understand, easy to relate to, no ambiguity, no nebulousness, no heavy symbolism, right? We're not going to get into the Kabbalah here, or do, you know, try and fit an astrological reading in a tarot card or anything like that. We just want to see the images and interpret them. This is an excellent deck for that. So that's the Charmin Caselli tarot deck. Next up, I have this is a cute little thing, the Vanessa Tarot. Now, I've got to say one thing about this. So yes, it comes in a tin. It is a US Games publication. However, when I went to check its price, I could not find it listed for sale in the Booktopia website here in Australia, which is one of our bigger retailers, if you wish, for books and decks. So I couldn't see it in there. And I went onto the US Games Systems website, and I had a look in there, and it is listed on there for around $20 US. So the conversion rate, that would be roughly 40 something dollars Australian. And it's a tiny little deck. That's the backs, obviously, and it's excellent for readings. It is it's spunky, you know, it's got spunk, it's got a zest for life, it's bright, and you just really feel the characters in it living life. I mean, okay, that's the 5 of coins, so there isn't much happiness or zest for life or joie de vivre in this card. However, most of the cards depict their characters in really lovely, upbeat ways. It is exclusively a feminine deck, or a female-based deck. All except one card are females. There's one card that shows a male, and that is in the Devil. This reminds me very much of Hillary Clinton and the Emperor card, and I just think it's really well done. Two of Wands, you know, Nine of Coins. I love that. I love these female protagonists in this deck, and I remember commenting, making a comment when I reviewed this deck, or I featured it a while back, saying how this reminds me of my 20s in a way, you know, when you're in that great time of your life when, sure, you're going through a few trials. I'm not downplaying that. Life can throw some curveballs when you're 20s, but you're young, you can bounce around more easily when you get knocked around. And you also have an income. Usually for me, certainly that was the case. I was a young professional and having money to burn and just enjoy life. You know, you go out for drinks with your friends, you play by the ocean, yeah. So anyway, all of that aside, I think that this is a great reading deck. I've used this for readings for clients, for younger clients as well. I prefer to use it for younger clients, but not necessarily so, because ultimately it follows the Rider-Waite-Smith tradition. It's really nicely structured. The color scheme is nicely done, and I love the energy and the vibe of this deck. I mean, I love that Chariot. She's off. Fantastic. So this is the Vanessa Tarot, and this was created by Linear Narciso. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. Again, it's a US Games publication. It comes in a tin. I love that. You can throw it in your bag and the cards won't get damaged. And yes, you can find this secondhand, come up now and then for, you know, fairly cheap. So still, I'm not sure if it's going to go out of print or why our local pages don't have it. Okay, up next, I have a deck that is actually the exception to the rule, in that it doesn't follow the Rider-Waite-Smith tradition, it follows the Thoth tradition. And I actually wanted to throw one exception to the rule, because in life there is always one exception to every rule, and that's the Sun and the Moon Tarot. And I think this is a fantastic little deck for beginners. It follows Thoth, so it has keywords on the cards at the very top, as you can see. But, you know, for a deck where the characters don't have facial features, I don't know if you can see that, but there's no set eyes or anything like that in these characters, it is excellent. It is absolutely brilliant. This is the standard deck. So now you can get this in the standard deck, and I believe you'll find it around the $50 mark, 48, something like that. You can also get this in a tin for much cheaper, around the $32 mark, and I'm keen on getting the tin version because I think they're great to carry around. As I mentioned earlier with the Vanessa, you know, you chuck it in your bag and you don't have to worry about cards getting dented, which could happen when you just use like a normal cloth bag. So yeah, it works really well because I find that it's uncluttered, right? So the images you will see are not cluttered with, you know, a million symbols, and I really dislike decks that do that, because I've seen people, this is both when I was learning tarot and also when I taught it, they will just get lost in a sea of symbols, you know, with some decks that have so much infused in an image. You know, they think it's all mystical and magical and powerful and all this and that, but really the power lies in how efficient you can be as a reader and how effective you can be as a reader. And these cards, like that's the Seven of Swords, Futility, see how clean and uncluttered it is, and yet you can get an instant feel for the energy of this card by looking at the stance of the person, you know, the way that they are hunched over, you know, they're sitting in this cloud. There's still so much you can extract from it. And of course, you've got the keyword at the top that gives you a bit of information as well. So anyway, I wanted to throw a Thoth tarot in this collection, and I think that for beginners, for an in-print affordable tarot decks, this ticks the boxes, and I would recommend this for people that are fairly new to tarot. So finally, I have one last one. This one follows the Rider-Waite-Smith. I'm having it in a cloth bag. It is one of my most used decks, and you might have seen this around. I've seen readers actually use this, which is lovely to see, and you will recognize this as being the Llewellyn Tarot. This is a mass market publication. I'm pretty sure it's still in print. I haven't checked to see how much it is, but if you're after more of a romantic feel deck, this is it. Rider-Waite-Smith, absolutely. I mean, there's the Nine of Swords. It's unmistakable, right? There's no doubt as to what that card is. Six of Pentacles. Yeah, it follows the Rider-Waite-Smith exceptionally well, and it brings a really nice, gentle softness in the way that these cards are done. I believe using watercolors, but don't quote me on that. Again, the color scheme I really, really love. You know, cards that have a predominance of one color, because when you do a spread like a 7-card spread, it really shows sometimes like a pattern, right? Sometimes, you know, all of the past cards will be brightly colored, and then you come to the future cards and you'll have gray or blue colored cards like the Ace of Swords. It doesn't mean that they're necessarily bad, but it gives a completely different energy, and I do believe that is important. And in my experience, it is important when you pick up on those color nuances and the color patterns and the changes in the storyline with how color shows up. So yeah, something a bit different, but this is a great reader's deck once again. It does have obviously like a Celtic flavor to it, and you would need the book for some of these cards to give you a bit more information, but as you can see, a lot of them you really don't need a book at all. Like, I mean, that's the King of Pentacles, and it's excellently drawn in the Rider-Waite-Smith tradition. The book will come in handy where you have things like Temperance, and you have the writing at the top, so that's Keeper of the Well, and you might want to read up on that and its symbolism, right? Same with the Star, and that's a major arcana thing. The minor arcana you don't really need to, you know, go into depth, because they follow the Rider-Waite-Smith really, really well. So that is the Llewellyn Tarot, and that wraps it up. So I hope, you know, if you're relatively new to tarot, or if you want a deck that's not Rider-Waite-Smith per se, but you also want something that's still reasonably affordable, and that's you can find easily, then these would be my recommendations. And they're by no means an exhaustive list. These would be like, I looked at my deck collection, I looked at my shelves and my cabinet, and I went, you know, if I had someone that I had to give a recommendation that ticked all those boxes, so not Rider-Waite-Smith, affordable, in print, you know, what would I look for? What would make an excellent reading deck that ticks that criteria? So I picked these 6, and yeah, I hope this is of use to those of you who are branching out into tarot, or even if you are an experienced reader. I'd like to know how you feel about some of these tarot decks, because for me, I still use these so regularly. If not every month, definitely every year I pull these out, and now and then if I'll do like a reading for a festival or something, or a client, something like that, like the Charmin Caselli, the Hanson Roberts, Vanessa Tarot, they've all come out for readings for clients, and they've worked excellently. So to wrap it up, thank you so much for watching, thank you for supporting my channel, and until my next video, take care.